There are certain things I'm an expert on. Certain things I've become an expert on based on experience. And I have an experience that no one else at this radio station has. Some of us have a little bit of the experience. Sean has a little bit of the experience. Sal has a little bit of the experience. Gio, a little bit of the experience. BT, none of the experience, but he'll understand why. It's not an insult. I root for certain teams. And when you root for certain teams, you learn from certain things.
I got you now.
I am an expert on mercenaries.
Mercenary piece of crap.
I know more about mercenaries than really anybody else. And so yesterday, Tiki made a comment on this show that yesterday was the first brick in me turning on Aaron Rodgers.
Wait, did I cause you to? Did I force this to happen?
You caused me to think long and hard about things.
Okay, which then drew you to this conclusion.
Drew me to a conclusion that I think is fairly obvious if you use a noodle. Yesterday wasn't just the first brick of me turning on Aaron Rodgers. Yesterday was the first brick on Aaron Rodgers turning on us. Aaron Rodgers is likely to never play a game for the New York Jets. And it's pretty obvious why. He's a mercenary. And when mercenaries come to cities, they come for a reason. Wow. Usually it's for either money or a really, really, really good chance to win. When the really, really good chance to win starts to go out the window, the first thing the mercenary does is they quit, is they leave, is they say, I owe them nothing and I'm gone. Let's play a little game, why don't we? How did it end with James Harden?
He left.
He quit. How did it end with Kevin Durant?
Yeah, he ultimately wanted to leave.
He quit. How did it end with Max Scherzer?
He got rid of his no trade.
Waved his no trade and said, get me the hell out of here. How did it end with Justin Verlander?
Ditto on that one, no trade.
Ditto. They all quit because they owe us nothing.
Mercenary piece of crap.
I'm just reading the room. When this Jets season continues to go upside down and backwards, and it goes worse than even he could have imagined, and the locker room is lost, and things look bleak, you are being naive. If you think this guy has any loyalty to us, he is just like James Harden, he is just like Max Scherzer, he is just like Kevin Durant, and he is just like Justin Verlander. At the first sign of adversity, what these mercenaries do is they quit.
But he hasn't done this yet.
Not yet.
There is a perception that I, ignorantly felt about Aaron Rodgers. I mean, ignorantly, because I just literally have no idea. I'd never met him until I went over to training camp at the beginning of summer. I'd never had an interaction with him. Most people I know had not had interactions with him as well. And there was this preconceived notion about who he was. Then he comes here to New York with Nathaniel Hackett, his guy, with the expectation that's surrounding the Jets and the good work that Joe Douglas has done to build this roster to a championship viable team. And it felt to me like he was intentionally trying to gold plate his image. I guess is the best way to put it, right? Going to the Swift concert, taking his boys out to Broadway shows, going to dinner, having all these different experiencing the New York, like longtime New Yorkers experience. It felt like he was trying to let the world know him and know really him. And I bought it because I feel like, wow, maybe I was wrong about Aaron Rodgers. Not knowing him, now I see him almost every day. This is amazing. I think that it is important for Aaron Rodgers to do that, to redefine, despite his Hall of Fame career that he had in Green Bay, to redefine who he is perceptually. And if he quits in New York, he's going to get crushed. Absolutely crushed by the umpteenth million New York Jet fans, maybe even New York media as well, if he decides to do what Kevin Durant did or James Harden did or Justin Verlander or Max Scherzer did. If he does that, it's going to make us all remember who he was when we didn't know who he was. I think there's no way that happens.
He doesn't care. Like, Aaron Rodgers was a guy who came out and said, I was, what was it called? He wasn't vaccinated, but he was vaccinated. Whatever the hell that was.
Immunized.
I was immunized. He doesn't care when he faces backlash. Most athletes don't. Like, there are moments where you want to clean up your image, but ultimately you do what's right for you. And when you're a mercenary, and I have no regrets about acquiring any of those mercenaries, including Aaron Rodgers, you got to shoot your shot. Sometimes when you shoot your shot, it works. Ask Travis Kelce. Sometimes when you don't shoot your shot, you never find out.
Did he really shoot a shot?
Yeah, sort of. More on that later. I have no regrets, but I also know how to read the future. When you had it happen to you before. Mercenaries come to you for selfish reasons.
But you had it in baseball. You had it in basketball.
Yeah?
You haven't
I haven't had it in football, Tiki? Don't walk into this trap. Did I have it in football, Tiki?
I almost said it, and then maybe I rethought it.
We separate the mercenaries to the more recent mercenaries, the big three in Brooklyn, the two aces in New York. But there was another mercenary. And that other mercenary was very, very different. That other mercenary never actually wanted to be here. That mercenary never wanted to come to New York, but he was forced to.
Special occasion here. Special. It's a
very special.
It's a special case.
That mercenary, when he got the first opportunity to leave because he never wanted to be here, was gone. And then, oh, by the way, got to the NFC Championship the following year. And that's Brett Favre. So it has happened in football.
It has, but it's rare. And I think the Jets were taking advantage of the situation with the Minnesota Vikings not being able to trade for Brett Favre. There's no way the Green Bay Packers are going to trade him.
Well, I also think that the Jets decided this wasn't working, kind of like the Mets.
Yeah.
Like, the Mets had a mutual breakup with their stars. That was certainly not the case with the other team. But when you bring in a Hall of Famer who's at the end of their career and has made a lot of money, the reason they come to your team is because in their eyes, the situation is perfect. Some may say the situation is easy, whether it's a friend you want to play with, whether it's a great amount of money, whether it's the roster. Aaron Rodgers came here because Joe Douglas, to his credit, did an amazing job building this roster. And so Aaron looked around the league, A, who wanted him, and then B, where would I fit? And he saw a great situation. Well, that situation, all of a sudden, 3 weeks into the year, and he can give me whatever hype talk he wants and whatever relaxed speech he wants, this is not good, and it's going to get worse. And when it gets worse and the locker room is lost and the head coach is on the hot seat and adversity is faced, not only is that pep talk BS he gave yesterday to McAfee dead, I wonder if his want and his commitment to a franchise that he's barely been with, I wonder if that commitment's going to last. And the track record of mercenaries is that it doesn't last. You do what's best for you. And by the end of this season, this man is going to look at his situation and he's going to say, why would I want to be here? That's the reality, Tiki.
Yeah,
watch.
The other retort that I would have, one is the image thing, which I believe he was very focused on doing. The second one is, given the circumstances as they exist right now, doesn't it set Aaron Rodgers up to be the perfect savior for the Jets? Doesn't it set him up to come in and be the knight in gleaming armor and shining armor with the answer to all of the problems? Doesn't that set him up to be that guy? And if I don't care what position you are, but if you have that, don't you want that? I can't see him running away from that.
So in theory, you're right. Like, it sets him up to come back as the savior of the Jets. But when he talked in the offseason before he ever came here, and that's the problem. I listen to a lot of what Aaron Rodgers said before he ever walked through this door. And I heard Aaron Rodgers talk about locker rooms, and Aaron Rodgers talk about the amount of teams that can win a championship, and Aaron Rodgers' philosophies. I've heard what Aaron Rodgers has said. If he looks in this room after a 12 or 13 win season, and Garrett Wilson didn't take his advice, and Michael Carter didn't take his advice, and the defense completely loses it on this head coach because of his blind commitment to this crappy quarterback, there's a chance Aaron's going to look at this situation and look at this franchise and say, why the hell would I want to be here?
Because he can fix it.
Can he, though?
I would think that's what he believes. I think he believes that he's the answer. And that's why, whenever he first tore his Achilles and he's talking about coming back, he's saying, guys, just weather the storm. I'll be back, even though it's very unlikely. I feel like he has this hero mentality. Like, I know that I can take this team where it wants to be. It's why he comments from his hospital bed, or maybe it's his home bed, laid up with the Achilles injury, about the state of the sideline and the state of the locker room, and guys, just chill out. Like, have this conversation internally. Don't publicly be so demonstrative and show this national divide because it's counterproductive. That is just going to hurt you. But I feel like he still wants to be engaged. He still wants to be that hero.
He
so
does today.
I don't see him running away from it.
Today he does. But you know what's scary about what you just said? And a lot of it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the same thing about all those other guys.
Mercenary piece of crap.
I thought the same thing about a top 5 scorer maybe in the history of the sport. I thought the same damn thing. And guess what he decided to do? He said, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out. After saying all the right things for 2 years, after signing an extension, after believing in everybody, he did the same thing. If Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer thought they were so freaking good, they could have said, it doesn't matter that you traded David Robertson.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to dominate like the aces we are, and we'll carry the Mets to the postseason. But they didn't do that, and they're all-time greats.
Yeah.
And Durant didn't do that, and he's an all-time great. And that quitter in Philly didn't do it, and he's supposedly an all-time great. So I respect the hell out of Aaron Rodgers, just like I respected those guys. But those guys showed me the roadmap of mercenaries. They'll come to you. They'll give you moments. They'll excite you. And they may even say all the right things. But at the end of the day, they only got in bed with you because they thought it was easy. And when things are too tough, they quit. So 5 for 5. I don't include the kooky one. 5 for 5. They all quit.
So
all of them.
So
I learned from history.
Okay. So,
I get it. Sal learns from the Mets. He didn't learn from the Nets. Sean learns from the Nets. He didn't learn from the Mets. Keith learns from the Nets. He didn't learn from the Mets. I'm the poor schmuck that learned from both. And trust me, I'm here just to teach, just to remind you that this is what mercenaries do. Yesterday was the first brick. He is not long for us. He's not long for New York. Trust me.
Are you officially turned on Aaron Rodgers before any of this has actually happened?
Listen,
like, that's what you have to ask yourself. I'm turning. No, you know what it sounds like? It sounds like you're protecting yourself. It sounds like you're throwing up a facade, a wall, and all of that good feel, that good juju that you had when Aaron Rodgers was your starting quarterback and he was healthy and you had these aspirations for being a Super Bowl contender or a champion. You had all of these things. They were just like all around you. They were hugging you.
Yeah.
And then he gets hurt and they kind of come away from you just a little bit. Like they start to get a little bit out of your reach. Right? You're just kind of grasping at it. You're still holding a little bit. And so what you're doing, what you're saying is put up a wall now. Just let it go. Put up a wall. Let all of that good Aaron Rodgers juju sit behind this facade that's impenetrable now because you're trying to protect yourself from being hurt simply because you've been hurt before.
Well, I'm a baby.
That's what it sounds like you're doing.
There's a lot of that's true, but there is something that can change all this.
Which is?
There is something that can prove my point, not wrong, but moot. Like it didn't matter. Win football games and not be a dysfunctional mess.
Good point.
Like, if they don't turn in more so than they already are at 1 and 2 into the dysfunctional mess that Sean thinks they will be, that a lot of people think they will be, then maybe he doesn't quit on them. If this team fights and makes the quarterback change they should and wins a few games, and it doesn't have to necessarily be 10, I'm not sure what the number is, but if they're good to decent, then everything I just described doesn't have to happen. But in the worst case scenario where it does, he gone. He's going to quit like they all do. So Robert Saleh has a choice. Robert Saleh can try to save this. Robert Saleh can make a quarterback change. This defense can force turnovers. This run game can produce. This offensive coordinator can make brilliant play calling, and the New York Jets could shock the world Sunday night. Or they could beat Denver, or they could beat Philadelphia, or they could beat the Giants, and this season can turn into something decent. And if it does, then no, I don't think he'll quit.
Okay.
But if things get bad and they're on the road to badness, he's gone.
He could kiss my ass.
You're just expecting bad. That's what it sounds like. You're expecting bad.
Well, it's tough not to now.
I mean, this weekend's not going to be fun. I can tell you that much right now. But it sounds like you're expecting. It sounds like you're expecting the worst. And it's again, it feels like a protection measure. It does.
Am I wrong about anything I said, though?
No, you're not.
Especially when I lay out how it ended with the other mercenaries. It's a 5 for 5, dude.
But if it happens.
Yeah.
But football's a different situation.
They all quit, dude. Every single one of them.
I know that Aaron Rodgers is not Brett Favre, but Brett Favre he came here because he had to. He wanted to leave Green Bay for Minnesota. That's where he wanted to go.
I get you.
But there's no way that was happening, so he had to take an interim step. And he came here and he balled until he got hurt. And ultimately, he ended up where he was going to go. It was never real here with Brett Favre.
Tiki.
It wasn't, oh, we're building something for the – it was like, all right, take what you get right now because it's going to be gone in a year. Whether they won or they lost, that was going to happen with Brett Favre. I don't feel like Aaron Rodgers is in that same situation.
Not every situation is going to be perfect, 100% comparison, but all I know is the outcome of every mercenary ends the exact same way. They quit.
I wish I had an example of one not happening.
You don't have it because it doesn't exist. Scherzer quit. Verlander quit. Harden is a quitter. Durant quit. Brett Favre quit. I separated because it was a long time ago.
It's different because you knew he was going to quit.
Okay, they all quit. They all at the same
Well,
way.
Evan's telling you he knows he's going to quit, too.
I'm just
And
trying
by
to
the
think,
way,
there's got to be an example of this not happening.
yeah, and by the way, I'd throw in hockey terms, Tavares quit on the Islanders, too, but that's another guy. Third and 15th of all, Tiki, everybody keeps coming back to this point, too. You brought up the point with Favre. Rodgers, let's not pretend like Rodgers had 10 suitors out there and he's like, I got to beat the Jets.
Great point.
We only really know that the Jets actually called on Rodgers.
That's right.
He did everything right. He went to all the New York events. It's not his fault he got hurt. But let's not act like he, for the last 6 months he was in Green Bay, was pounding the doors that he had to be a Jet.
And here's the problem, and Sean's 100% right. He doesn't have loyalty to us. Mercenaries don't. And I'm not even suggesting he should. I'm just describing the scene. He has no loyalty to us. So if all of a sudden during the offseason, other teams that weren't interested in Aaron Rodgers now are, and his wandering eye starts to wander, and it will wander, that's the moment where this is over. And I can see the handwriting on the wall, unless the Jets aren't completely incompetent, unless they win 8 or 9 games and make the postseason. They have a chance to change all of this. But if this goes down the road of incompetence, and he gave us the first sign yesterday, he tries to give us a rah-rah speech. It's early. He tried to play the relax act. He can't do that at 2-9. And it's going to realize in his head, wow. And he'll even think, wow, that place is toxic. Joe Namath's turning on them.
Yeah.
The entire city's turning on them. The fans, they're so disloyal. So in his brain, it'll be, well, it's our fault. But if this goes bad, dude, this is not breaking news. This is just obvious. But maybe it's only obvious to me because I've experienced it. What is the breaking news?
This is actually legitimately breaking news. There is a monster sports trade that just went down.
What sport?
Basketball.
Damian Lillard.
Yeah.
Damian Lillard to the Toronto Raptors.
No.
Don't do this to me.
The Brooklyn Nets.
Don't do that to me.
No.
Okay.
The New York Knicks.
The Milwaukee Bucks.
Wow.
I'll give you, it's a 3-team trade.
Am I in the trade?
No.
My team?
No. Aaron Rodgers also not in the trade, although maybe he was pulling the trigger. He is part owner of the Bucks.
Dame to the Bucks.
Lillard is going to Milwaukee
Makes
as part
sense.
of this is from Woj.
This makes sense, though.
3-team deal with Drew Holiday, DeAndre Ayton, Tamani Kamara.
Hold on a second. Hold on. I got to get my brain straight. So Drew Holiday's leaving Milwaukee and going to Phoenix? Is that what you're saying?
No.
He's going to Portland.
Yes.
Okay.
With DeAndre Ayton.
DeAndre Ayton is going to Portland. Okay.
Got it.
All right.
Tamani Kamara and a 2029 unprotected Milwaukee first and an unprotected Milwaukee swap rights, whatever, in 2 years.
Yeah,
to
when
the
Giannis
Blazers.
is
So
gone.
who's coming to Milwaukee? Just
Lillard. Phoenix is getting Yusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen, Nazir Little, and Keon Johnson.
Wow. That was necessary by Milwaukee because
They don't even get a pick out of it?
Well, they're terrified that Giannis is leaving.
No, I get you.
They're terrified, so they had to do something.
Well, defensively, they took a major step back. That's
Big
my
time.
first take.
Yep.
My second opinion on this whole thing is Portland is just idiotic. I'm sorry. I hate that
They don't
trade
get
for the
a single
Trailblazers.
pick?
They get lousy, potentially good first-round picks from Milwaukee.
They're tanking.
Drew Holiday is old.
They're tanking.
And DeAndre Ayton is, he plays like he's old.
They're tanking.
They're tanking.
They're tanking.
All right, yeah, the Blazers got those. I forgot. This is who Phoenix got was Grayson Allen. And all
Yeah,
that.
forget Phoenix. I'm thinking of Portland's return. Wow. All right, so that's worthy breaking news. We're not going to spend much more time on it, but
Interesting.
yeah, Damian Lillard to the Milwaukee Bucks, that's a stunner. So Damian Lillard, who's kind of a hypocrite. I kind of like Dame, but he is.
Yeah.
Destroyed Durant for going to Golden State. Said he would never do that. I think he made the comment he'd retire before he went to Golden State.
Yep.
Yet was trying to force his way to the defending Eastern Conference champion Heat, and now he's going to a team that won a title a couple of years ago. It's not quite Golden State, but it's, it's there.
Yeah. It's I wanted to see him stay his whole, just to buck the trend. the veteran old guy.
No pun intended.
Exactly. Exactly. But I wanted to see it happen. But are you surprised? The NBA moves around like, I don't know, high school kids swap girlfriends. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous.
I am surprised he didn't end up in Miami because usually the star player gets exactly what they want.
Mm-hmm.
But clearly Portland did not want Tyler Hero. They didn't want all the first-round picks. They didn't want it. And so they preferred a return of DeAndre Ayton, Drew Holiday, and a couple of number ones.
And the Blazers are looking now to move Drew Holiday.
Well, of course they are.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't even make any sense. All right. Thanks for the breaking news. One last thing, and we'll get to your phone calls, 877-337-6666. We may have an update on what the Yankees plan on doing during the offseason. We'll address it a little bit later on. But I've got to do this because sometimes you got to be the voice for the voiceless.
You got to pre-protect yourself is what you got to do.
Now, this has nothing to do with me. What
Slapping
I'm about
on
to
the
say.
football prophylactic right now. That's what you're doing.
Last night at Citi Field, the New York Mets embarrassed themselves.
Yeah.
They embarrassed themselves. I understand the Mets aren't on a pennant race. I understand we're not talking about Met baseball. I understand there was only 11,000 people that are going to the game. But yesterday on this radio show, at about 5:35, we took a phone call from a gentleman who was making a comment how he was sitting in loads of traffic to go to Citi Field to watch the Met game to take his 9-year-old.
Remember this?
That guy called our show. That guy was greeted to the New York Mets saying nothing to their fans for an hour and a half about the status of their game while no rain was falling from the sky. The only update they had is, we're trying to put the field together. We'll keep you posted. My dad sat there, no update. Howie Rose sat there with no update. And they sat, and they sat, and they sat. And by the way, these are the same customers, Met fans, and I wasn't involved. I wasn't there. This is nothing personal. These are the same customers that just had their ticket prices raised on them. These are the same customers that had their partial plans essentially taken away from them, or at least offered a lot less. And the New York Mets decided last night to open up their gates with a crappy field, not update their fans, and then postpone the game. I get that nobody cares if you weren't involved, but for the 11,000 people that were there, I care. And then for this owner, Steve Cohen, to go on social media for the first time since June and apologize to the Marlins and apologize to the Marlins fans. First of all, none of us give a rat's ass about the Miami Marlins and their dopey fans. We care about us. So, Steve, if he's already done it, please correct me. Please go back on Twitter and apologize to that dude who took off work early to drive his 9-year-old to Citi Field and sit in traffic on a Tuesday night for a team that sucked. Apologize to him. Apologize to the people that sat in that building and bought overpriced chicken fingers while you guys didn't tell them anything about what was going on. Apologize to them. And here's the truth. If the Wilpons still owned the team, we'd all be going nuts. This is such a Wilpon thing. I love Steve. I'm glad he owns the team. I'm excited for the offseason. I don't feel like I have to say that every time, but I almost feel like I do, which is odd. But what happened last night was a Wilpon embarrassment. And tickets for a game in April and May is not good enough. A written apology, a video note from Steve himself, and maybe some Kodai Senga glow-in-the-dark baseballs would be enough to apologize to the 10,000 people that showed up at Citi Field last night. That's a terrible, terrible job by the New York Mets. And I get why it happened. They didn't put the tarp on the field on a Saturday. They thought it was going to stop raining on Monday and Tuesday. Blah, blah, blah. The weather was wrong. The field was unplayable. I know why it happened. I'm not blaming the grounds crew. I'm blaming you. At 4 o'clock, make a decision. If that field's in bad shape at 4 o'clock, don't make your poor customers who you just raised ticket prices on show up to the stadium. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't make them sit there until 8:15 before you tell them, sorry, doubleheader tomorrow. Don't do it. Cancel the game. And one last thing to the Miami Marlins and all their fans and their ownership and all their players. Go bleep yourself. All right.
Meanwhile, Mets grounds crew might cost Marlins a playoff start.
Too bad.
Due to bad conditions. That's the silver lining.
Would you call the 8,000 people there last night mercenary pieces of crap?
Never. That's my fellow Met fans out there. I love you.